boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. It's Jesse with the Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things nerdy through a common sense lens. And man, I will tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Fantastic Four is not doing so hot at the box office. Things are not looking so good out there after an opening weekend that came in under box office estimates out there. Yes, as per usual, all of the trade magazines, all of the shills, all the people possessed by the spirit of the age out there completely and totally overestimated how well this movie will end up doing at the opening weekend. And despite an extremely weak opening box office out there internationally, even Superman beat Marvel's Fantastic Four First Steps. Boys and girls, yes, what is supposed to be the launching their Phase 6, which is supposed to lead into like Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, and all of that kind of stuff out there is not showing good signs of being a good start for Fantastic or for Marvel as a whole overall. And this was supposed to be something out there that none of the shills, none of the access media can come up with any kind of excuses for this movie failing miserably at the box office, because they tried to say Captain America, Brave New World, and Thunderbolts flopped at the box office because, well, these were from characters that were part of Disney Plus shows out there, and so nobody really knew who they were, and so they didn't want to do homework and have to go back and watch these shows, yada, yada, yada. That's not going to happen with Fantastic Four. It's a standalone story. These are characters you don't have to do any homework on, yada, yada, yada. And yet, just like Captain America, Brave New World, and Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four First Steps, starting, of course, the always in demand by all of the fans out there, Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby, now faces one of the largest Friday-to-Friday drops we have ever seen for a Marvel movie. And boys and girls, the only question anyone should actually be asking out there is how bad this movie will actually end up flopping. Because as always, fans have decided Marvel burnout is real and Fantastic Four is not doing so well. And I mean, of course, who could have ever possibly seen this coming with marketing that is just telling you over and over and over again how Sue Storm is the leader and the heart and the soul of Fantastic Four, how she's going to be the hero to everything, how Pedro Pascal is out there saying how he loves being led around by strong women, and of course the giant elephant in the room that was the glaring mistake right from the beginning, and the giant red flag that was confirmed, of course, the female Silver Surfer, aka the Silver Surfer, ladies and gentlemen, which even the own actress herself went, wait a minute, isn't Silver Surfer a dude? Because yes, he is, with the exception of 6 panels, count them, 6 panels, boys and girls, in the history of all of Marvel Comics. The Silver Surfer, Norrin Radd, with decades of stories behind him, has always been a man. So color us shocked, with the exception of the absolute die-hard Marvel simps out there, and of course all of the movie reviewers and content creators, nobody is showing up to see this movie, and it is facing one of the biggest drops we have seen in a very long time. So we're going to check out this article from thatparkplace.com, getting all the juicy details of exactly how bad these Friday numbers were for the Fantastic Four First Steps into Oblivion. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing. We just crossed 2,100. We're sailing our way towards 2,200. I think we're sitting at like 2,120, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below. Did you go see Fantastic Four? Did you contribute to this box office? Did you actually enjoy the movie, or do you think it was a disappointment? What do you think overall how this box office will end up landing? Do you think this thing will actually end up cracking $500 million globally, or do you think it will end up coming under? Obviously, the thing's not going to make a profit at this point, but of course, if you want to argue about that, let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below, because as always, all opinions are welcome. And if you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description, because all of that stuff really goes a long way to keeping the lights around all around here, and of course, the goose between our gears, keeping this machine running. All right, from thatparkplace.com and our dear sweet Marvin Montanaro. Marvel's The Fantastic Four First Steps plummets nearly 80% at the box office in second Friday, raising red flags for potential MCU disaster. And let's just be brutally honest. Marvin down here, we love Marvin Montanaro over there at thatparkplace.com. But at the end of the day, he is very gracious. He is very kind to these folks. Historically, if these trends prove true, this movie has zero chance at making a profit, boys and girls. It just started off too weak, and this drop is way too high. Whether you like the movie or not, it does not matter. 2 plus 2 still equals 4. In a stark reminder of the volatile nature of superhero films in the post-lockdown era and the post-woke era, hopefully, Marvel Studios' latest offering, the Fantastic Four First Steps MCU Edition, experienced a dramatic 79.6% drop in domestic box office earnings from its opening Friday to its second Friday, obliterating more conservative predictions from earlier in the week. Yeah, there was people out there that were literally saying this thing was going to have like a 55 to 60% drop, which if you don't understand how the whole drop thing works, an average drop for a movie is anywhere from 60 to 70%. Normally in the range is around 60 to 65%, right? Starting to get closer to 70%, that's starting to look bad. Anything under 60% is a pretty darn good hold out there, ladies and gentlemen. And so needless to say, yeah, going from a 55 to 60% drop to an almost 80% drop, not exactly a good sign, and obviously had a lot of those Hollywood trade magazines out there scrambling to change all of their estimates, just like they had to do on opening weekend, where they over-predicted how well this movie was going to do again. Needless to say, it's not looking very good for the future. The film, which marks the MCU's reboot of the iconic superhero team, grossed an estimated $11.7 million on August 1st, 2025, down from $57 million, including previews, on its debut of July 25th. And of course, to be completely and totally fair, for complete and total objectivity and absolute disclosure, something the trade magazines will never give you, the Friday previews as part of that drop, the Thursday previews and all the previews for this movies are actually included in the Friday totals according to the numbers, which of course includes to that giant massive drop. So the drop is still higher than expected and very unusual, especially traditionally for a Marvel movie prior to, pre-Endgame. But needless to say, it's still a massive, massive drop out there, boys and girls. This sharp decline has sparked concerns among industry analysts, positioning the movie in potential disaster territory for Marvel if weekend turnout fails to rebound significantly. And needless to say, yeah, we've got a whole nother video coming out on how the weekend completely and totally panned out. So make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you see that as soon as it comes out, because it was glorious, boys and girls. Glorious for the fans, not so much for Marvel. The Fantastic Four First Steps, directed by a bunch of people we don't care about, yada, 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 opened to a solid fanfare. Not exactly a solid opening weekend. Remember, Superman, James Gunn's DC reboot, beat this thing in opening weekend. It debuted with $118 million domestically and $218 million globally over its first weekend, making it its fourth biggest opening of 2025, behind blockbusters like Minecraft Movie, Lilo and Stitch, and it also came in lower than the box office opening of rival DC Studios film Superman. So yes, and considering what came out this year, boys and girls, coming in fifth overall the fourth for the entire weekend, being the fourth biggest opening weekend of the year, not exactly saying all that much considering the disastrous dumpster fires that we've gotten in 2024. The film's retro-futuristic vibes and positive critical reception, boasting an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes and an A- on Cinema Score from audiences and a 65% on Criticlist. Youch. But needless to say, Criticlist isn't really a fair gauge of the general audience out there. It's got like an 85 or 89% on Rotten Tomatoes out there, so still a pretty solid audience score. But it doesn't matter if a big enough audience doesn't show up. And obviously that word of mouth is not getting around to the right people to make this thing successful coming the second weekend out there. By the end of its first full week, the film had accumulated $158.3 million domestically, but the cumulative total now stands at $170.1 million after the second Friday. Industry projections estimated a weekend gross of $39 million to $45 million, equating to a 64 to 67% drop from the opening frame, a figure that, while not uncommon for front-loaded blockbusters, signals waning general audience interest. And see, and that's the other thing too. This is them changing it after they Friday numbers. This is far worse than the industry projections earlier in the week, which predicted a 55 to 60% drop. They had to scramble to change those numbers as soon as those Friday box offices numbers started rolling in, because their estimates, as per usual, were way overestimated. This thing is doing way worse than all of them thought. or at least all of them put out there in the public, which once again is why nobody trusts the legacy media institutions anymore. The film's performance is indicative of a familiar issue plaguing the MCU: front-loading. Opening weekends for superhero movies are often driven by die-hard fans eager for the latest chapter in the interconnected universe, but sustaining momentum requires broader appeal and positive word of mouth, something Marvel once excelled at. Despite the A- cinema score indicating satisfied viewers, the steep Friday-to-Friday drop suggests the films have been overly reliant on hype surrounding its ties to upcoming MCU events like Avengers Doomsday. And that's just not going to sell with a general audience. Marvel burnout is real. Over, I would argue, practically the past decade, and beyond a shadow of a doubt, everything post-Endgame has done nothing but damage the Marvel brand and hurt all of the goodwill that they had with their general fan base out there. With the exception of WandaVision, which WandaVision completely and totally screwed up its ending and is the reason why I haven't seen a Marvel movie in the box office outside of Deadpool and Wolverine literally since Endgame, all of their projects have done nothing but to damage their brand. I know some people really liked Loki season 1 and even to a certain degree season 2, but outside of that and the beginning of the episodes of WandaVision, pretty much everything they put out since post-Endgame has been an absolute disastrous dumpster fire. There are plenty of arguments to be made out there that Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and of course, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is actually just a WandaVision sequel, all lost money. And of course, everything else out there, with the exception of Deadpool and Wolverine, absolutely has lost money since Endgame. They have done nothing but produce crap content since Endgame that was just MCU, diversity, inclusion, and equity, agenda-driven nonsense, and it's failed miserably, and it has caused the Marvel fan base to be burned out. They don't trust Disney Marvel anymore. And with the exception of the hardcore fan base out there that will eat up any of the slop Disney Marvel throws out there, no one else is showing up. And when you have budgets that range in the realms of $300 to $400 million actual money, that is not going to sell. That dog will not hunt, and Fantastic Four will be a flop and lose Disney Marvel hundreds of millions of dollars. Analysts want to point out the superhero fatigue. We know that's not the case, right? It's bad writing fatigue. It's woke fatigue. It's all that other kind of nonsense out there. And Pedro Pascal fatigue could also play a part. The controversial actor has been overexposed in Hollywood as of late, with several films coming out this year alone. Pedro's last release, Eddington, also flopped at the box office with a very weak opening. Could this be a sign that audiences are tired of Pedro? Yeah, we've been tired of Pedro since about Mandalorian Season 2, and definitely since the firing of Gina Carano and all of the hypocrisy from Disney Star Wars, Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, Dave Filoni, and everybody else involved in all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, we've all been kind of sick and tired of Pedro Pascal for quite a while. And obviously, Last of Us Season 1, even though despite a lot of its rave reviews, really didn't do all that well in the ratings despite all of the media hype. And guess what? I'd blame Pedro Pascal for that one too. But honestly, you can just blame The Last of Us Season 2 for that one as well. The Fantastic Four First Steps was positioned as a fresh start for the Marvel's first family, with a $300 million plus production and marketing budget. Yet its second weekend projections place it behind peers like Superman, which dropped just 53% in its second weekend, and has since crossed $500 million globally. Superman, just to be completely and totally fair, even as a DC fanboy and a total simp for all of this kind of stuff out there, just to be completely and totally fair and objectionable, Superman will still end up losing money at the box office as well, just not as much as Fantastic Four, boys and girls. Not anywhere near as much is what it's looking like. If the weekend doesn't see a pickup, it didn't. Spoiler alert. Driven perhaps by family audiences or repeat viewings, also didn't happen. The film risks falling short of profitability thresholds. It's not going to make a profit. There's no reason to go over the rest of this. There's not. It's not going to make a profit. They've tried to spin this. It's a billion-dollar industry that has failed miserably. Marvel used to be crown of the cinematic universe out there when it came to the superhero movies. It used to be the gold standard for superhero movies. And now they cannot even get Marvel's first family right for a couple of different reasons. One, you completely and totally irritated and made all of the fans mad when you did not properly cast John Krasinski, right? Isn't that his last name? The guy who you decided to do pull a fast one, a complete and total rug pull on all of the fans out there, casting him as an alternate universe of Reed Richards as the leader of the Fantastic Four, the actor everybody had been begging for him to play the role for a very long time, and he decided to kill him in a really stupid way in all of about 5 seconds after he ended up being on the screen. Instead, you decided to serve up the fans soy boy Pedro Pascal, creepy weirdo who decides to completely and totally inappropriately touch all of his attractive female co-stars, and then also decides to cuddle all of his male co-stars because, of course, that's just how things work in Hollywood. So, of course, he's a darling in Hollywood. Of course, they love him. Of course, they want them some more Pedro Pascal because he's everything that the agenda wants. He's politically outspoken, going with all of the woke agenda-driven modern audience talking points. And guess what? If he's not gay and acts exactly the way he wants, he's at least bi, and it's creepy and weird. And apparently that's how you are allowed to get away with all that kind of stuff in Hollywood. He is Hollywood's darling. He is not the fans' darling. And guess what? Kevin Feige, you have irritated and pissed off so much of your fan base over the last few years out there that no one is showing up for your garbage. And it does not matter how good the Marvel shills out there spew your nonsense and spew your garbage. And it doesn't matter how many headlines we get from likes of Variety and the Hollywood Reporter that try to spin this as some kind of win. Just like they tried to spin Captain America Brave New World as a win as well. And guess what? 3 to 6 months later, they're all admitting it was a disastrous dumpster fire, and they're asking you why it failed in interviews. And you tried to blame it on not having Captain America in the movie. Yeah, color us shocked there. That didn't work either. And you know why the Fantastic Four didn't work out? Because you didn't have the Fantastic Four in it. Instead, you had a girl boss running the show, taking all of the lead, a story that for the second half literally made no sense whatsoever, and a female Silver Surfer that nobody wanted and general audiences didn't see as anything more than a giant red flag, despite all of your marketing and your lies. And guess what, Marvel? You've danced with the devil. You've decided to go chase that modern audience, and it has now once again cost you hundreds of millions of dollars. Fantastic Four First Steps will be the first in Marvel's Phase 6 to be a giant disastrous flop at the box office. And after all, Kevin Feige, you danced with the devil, and now you've gotten burned. And it's exactly what you deserved. Fantastic Four is a flop, boys and girls.